This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Jamie Glazov Moment. Tonight, former Miss Baghdad murdered. The real reason Sharia reviles women. Ladies and gentlemen, just recently the Iraqi social media star and model Tara Farris was shot dead in Baghdad. Now, she was the former Miss Baghdad and the first runner-up for Miss Iraq. She was killed when gunmen opened fire on her while she was in her car. Now, Tara was a Christian, and she was famous for her bold clothing and posts on social media. And of course, bold means that she didn't follow the dictates of Sharia. It means she wouldn't wear a hijab or covering, and just wanted to pursue her own self-determination and her freedom. And we know that women are severely punished for that under Islam. And we're seeing a pattern here in terms of what just happened to Tara in Iraq, of course, throughout the Islamic world 24/7. But in Iraq, there's a pattern lately. You've got to read Christine Williams at Jihad Watch. She just wrote a very profound blog on this. So just put in, if you're Google searching, Christine Williams, Tara Farris murdered, and you will see Christine details what happened there and gives her own profound interpretation. And so what Christine is writing about at Jihad Watch is the pattern that's happening here. And what is that pattern? Well, the human rights activist Suad al-Ali was just murdered at an outdoor market 2 days before Tara. And recently also two well-known women in Baghdad's beauty industry were murdered. Rafif al-Yassiri, who was known as Barbie of Iraq, and Rasha al-Hassan, who was the owner of a beauty center, also murdered. Nothing's being done about it. I mean, you know, you hear some lip service from the authorities there, and a leader or two says something, but nothing's really done about this because it's a larger problem, because it's connected to Sharia, which wants to stifle and suffocate women and keep them out of mind and out of sight. And Tara Farris and these other women who are pursuing their own self-determination on many levels are paying the highest price, being murdered throughout the Islamic world and in Iraq right now. I want to ask a question. Where is the hashtag #MeToo movement? Where is it? It's so concerned about women's rights and the abuse of women. Where's the hashtag #MeToo demonstration on behalf of Tara? Where are the leftist feminists? Well, Christine Williams pointed out where they are in one of her blogs on Jihad Watch. She's pointed out that the hashtag #MeToo movement and the leftist feminists, they're too busy lynching Western males rather than caring about real female victims of a supremacist ideology. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this evening I wanted to get a little bit into Islam and women. Why is this happening to Tara? You know, the establishment media ignores this. There's a lot of writings on this by brave people, by the truth tellers, but oftentimes we don't get into some of the deeper theological, religious, spiritual matters. And I wanted to do that tonight in terms of my own journey and some things I've been thinking about as a Christian. Here I just want to just say very quickly, look, I get don't get me wrong, I get a lot of supporters and fans who appreciate what we do, but we always have I get these emails, I get these complaints on YouTube and on my website, you know, typically, very typical lately. You know, I unsubscribed when I start hearing about that Jesus stuff and that religious stuff. Listen, do you go to a comedy club and start complaining that people are joking around on the stage? I think it's pretty evident by now that as the host of this show, I'm a Christian, and I sometimes talk about Jesus Christ and my Christian perspective. We have many other perspectives on this show. And the wonderful Annie Cyrus, the producer of this program, has her own spiritual journey that sometimes she refers to, sometimes she doesn't refer to it, but she has her own journey. And we have guests like Daniel Greenfield that has his Judaic theology and his Jewish tradition that he discusses. We're a multicultural, multi-faith program. I happen to talk about my Christian beliefs and perspectives sometimes. If you don't like it, don't watch the program, all right? So, sorry, just wanted to get that out there. So, ladies and gentlemen, so I've been giving some thought to Islam and women and why this is happening. And I've given a lot of thought to this throughout my life. What is going on with, and I've thought about Nazism and fascism and the evil that it represents. Thought about communism and that rebellion against God and why that leads to genocide. And so we see how Satan operates on a spiritual realm in terms of fascism and especially the war on the Jewish people. We see the persecution of Christians under Islam. We see the genocide of human beings under communism, etc. But tonight, I wanted to share some of my thoughts as a Christian on looking at Islam and when I see what's happening to what happened to Tara Ferris and to women. And when we think about the women that are, covered in these black garbage bags in Saudi Arabia, because basically that's what they really are. When we look at the burqa and niqab, when we look at hijab, when we think about the forced covering of women, when we examine female genital mutilation and that horror, and honor killings and forced marriage and child marriage and forced segregation, and Islam's attempt to keep women out of sight and out of mind, its need and its attempt to maim and mutilate and to erase women. What is happening here? Why is it happening? And I've given a lifelong dedication. I've dedicated a lot of my life to trying to understand this, and of course it's interwoven with our attempt and with our effort to protect Muslim women and girls under Islam, and also with protecting women and girls outside of Islam that are suffering from Sharia, and of course on a larger level to protect all people who suffer from Islamic totalitarianism and terror, and from all totalitarianism in general. What I wanted to share tonight, and I'm going to try to do this quickly, and it's difficult because, sometimes it takes hours to explain these things. Now, before I go further, I don't understand many things. I understand very little. I'm just sharing my study throughout my life and some of my own personal thoughts and a lot of what I've read, and I'm just putting it on the table, and I do it with a humble heart. But we see a spiritual battle. There's definitely a spiritual battle going on. It is no coincidence that Islam is trying to pursue where Hitler left off and what he didn't achieve. So we see what Hamas and Hezbollah and what Islam is trying to do to the Jewish people, for instance, this genocide against the Jews. And of course, it's without doubt there's a spiritual component there of the devil's hatred of the Jewish people. And we see what's happening in terms of Islam and the persecution of Christians. And we've done many shows on that, and that has to be another program. But it's no coincidence that Islam says, very shrewdly, maliciously, and cleverly, with a lot of malice, the lies, how evil works, it never comes barefaced. It comes with the truth, but always slightly blurred. And so we hear in Islam that we really respect Jesus, we love Jesus, we believe in Jesus. He just didn't die on the cross, and he's not a member of the Holy Trinity, and he's not divine. Now, it's very interesting how they do that. And in whose interest is it to say that Jesus didn't die on the cross? So the more we examine Islam, it becomes no coincidence what's going on there and what entity is involved. And then the hatred of women. What we see what Islam is doing to women. So throughout my life, I studied and I thought about what is this hatred of women? Why does the devil hate women so much? And why is this happening especially through Islam and how it manifests itself? Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, we see the first mentioning and prediction of Jesus Christ. And God says to the serpent in Genesis 3:15, quote, "And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. He shall crush thy head, and thou shalt strike his heel." And so when I'm speaking in this way and bringing up the different words, there's just different translations and different words that are used in different texts. But we see here that God is announcing this enmity between the woman and the serpent and how it will continue as history begins to unfold. But we see the mentioning of Jesus here because we see that the seed of the woman, that there will be an enmity between thee and the woman and between thy seed and her seed. So we see the prediction of Jesus Christ coming into the world later through woman, the seed of the woman. He will come through Mary, and he will crush the serpent's head. Jesus is Christ's death and resurrection, and praise Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. His crucifixion and resurrection will crush the plans of the devil, will crush the devil, and there is victory in Jesus Christ. And yet, that also Jesus will suffer on the cross, and so that the serpent's seed will bruise, strike his heel. In other words, that Jesus in the crucifixion, that his heel, that part of that crucifixion also nailed his feet and his arms, etc. But it's a reference to the crucifixion. This is, fascinating is, I don't know what words to use. This is all miraculous stuff. Why I'm bringing this up is that Christ's death and resurrection crushes Satan, and Christ comes through the woman. And so Satan hates women, has a special hatred in his heart for women, because Jesus Christ, the Savior, comes into the world through Mary, through the woman. It's an idea that I wanted to share with you this evening. And so that hatred of women is always inside of Satan, and in the spiritual battle in this world, how Satan comes through the world and through these totalitarian ideologies. It is no coincidence that we see the torment and the torture of women under supremacist and totalitarian and terroristic ideologies such as Islam. Let me add a few other thoughts that I've had and what I've read and some of my own perspectives on this, is that there's a hatred of women by Satan because of Jesus Christ coming into the world through a woman. And I also want to mention that there's also just a hatred of women, period, because of their ability to procreate. Women create life, and perhaps not necessarily the creators of life, but they procreate and they bring life into the world. Satan hates life. Women procreate. And there's a great jealousy in the fallen angels, Satan and all those demons. A lot of it is rooted in terms of the war in heaven and what happened, in terms of where that break happened. There was a tremendous jealousy of some angels that humans were going to be able to procreate. And so the fallen angels and Satan hate women. They hate all humans, absolutely. They hate all of God's creation, but we're talking about women here. There's a special hatred of women, an intense hatred, because there is a hatred of life, and women procreate. They bring life into the world. And there's also a jealousy that women can procreate and can create life. And Satan hates that tremendously. Last but not least, and there's many, many other things, and perhaps I've fallen very short of the true reasons and everything that needs to be discussed, but I do want to say this: the beauty of women is the incarnation of God's beauty. That all the beautiful things you see in God's creation is always a reflection of God's beauty. And so the beauty of women, how beautiful they are, is the incarnation of God's beauty in heaven. So Satan also hates God's creation, but he hates God's beauty. And women are a reflection. They are the incarnation of God's beauty. And he hates that beauty, and he's also very jealous of it. And that's why he wants to cover it up. It is no coincidence that when you look at the core of Islam, and you look at the women and you just think about the beauty of women, that all you see are these black coverings over the women. especially in Saudi Arabia, the core of Islam, because a certain entity wants to cover up women and their beauty because he is very jealous and he hates women especially. And so we begin to understand that somebody like Tara Ferris, who does not want to cover up her beauty, is punished and pays the highest price under Islam. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a spiritual battle. I'm very humbly just giving my own perspective as a Christian that has given a thought to this and has tried to understand this over the years. And I just wanted to put it on the table in terms of those of us who are believers, in terms of how we are trying to understand what is happening on this planet, because there are spiritual elements involved and there's a spiritual battle involved. And so I discuss much of this in my new book, which you should pre-order, Jihadist Psychopath. But in that book, I discuss a lot of this spiritual battle. I discuss what the left is, that rebellion against God that the left is, communism, socialism, why it causes so much death. I explain what Islam is, and I explain why the left and Islam are in alliance together and why they're causing together so much genocide, so much pain, and why they're allied today against freedom and against individuality and against liberty. Read Jihadist Psychopath, you'll understand the unholy alliance better. You'll understand why there's a war on men, why there's a war on women, why there's a war on humanity. And you'll be able to equip yourself, and through equipping yourself with this knowledge, you'll be able to better defend our freedoms, Western civilization, and God's precious creation. We'll see you on the next Jamie Glazov moment. Good night.